What's happening, everybody? So we have wealthy agent. We're making wealthy agent history today because Matthew Miale was the first person I ever had on a second time, and he is now the first person that I've asked to come on for a third time.
Not
So this
sure
is
what that says about me. I'm an easy yes, apparently. I'm not,
no, no,
yeah,
not at all.
I need to increase my rates, perhaps. Who knows?
I mean, that could be it. That could be it. Not yet, though.
Not yet.
So honestly, every time we get a chance to pull Matt in, pick his brain, he's had an incredible career, super insightful guy, also a really good friend of mine. But there's just so much that we can learn from his experience, his journey. So it's always a gift when we're able to spend a little time and learn from all of that. Really fun and interesting. You guys are getting like, I feel like a special treat. Um, for any of you who do follow and listen to the Millionaire Real Estate Agent podcasts that Jason Abrams does, all of which are phenomenal, you are actually looking at one of the guests whose episode has not published yet or hasn't dropped yet.
Hasn't dropped.
So uh, Matt just did that interview. I've already seen Jason teasing it. I know there's going to be tons of good content in there, but that's the caliber of individual that Matt is. He's in Gary's top 100. He's being interviewed for that podcast. And again, not trying to blow his head up, but tremendous amount of experience, tremendous amount of knowledge, and honestly, tremendous amount of wisdom, not only about the business, but leadership, personal growth, all those awesome things. What I asked Matt to kind of focus on today was profitability. Not this, it sounds like not a sexy conversation out of the gate if you just put it in a title. However, profitability is the money you actually get to keep to go fund your life and take care of your family and all those things. So if that is not sexy, I don't understand what you're doing in business, to be totally candid, because it's the purpose of business. So learning how to make more money, keep more money, invest your money, right? Like I don't know a sexier topic in the business world than that, because
Mm.
it's why we do what we do. And Matt's got a really unique story. Well, maybe it's not that unique, but maybe where he started, where he ended, and his willingness to share that story is a little unique. Um, so Matt, I'm going to let you kind of take over just with a little bit of a setup. You guys have heard my story in the past. You know, one of the things I learned very quickly when I got in the industry, you know, I joined a top producing office that had a lot of top producing agents, people I looked up to, signs all over town, billboards, the whole nine. Scoreboard's public. They sold a lot of houses. The reality is, I got to know them personally and found out most of them had financial problems, right? Young and green, that was super confusing to me. I didn't understand. I could see the scoreboard, I could do math. That was sounded like a lot of money. I was like, how is this even possible? Like, how can you be behind on your taxes? This doesn't make sense, right? Again, very green, very naive. Then, as I started to step into leadership, all of a sudden, my door is the door that people knock on to talk about what is going on behind the curtain. And I realized very quickly it's a minority issue, or I'm sorry, a majority issue, not a minority, that either are struggling, have struggled, right? And the reality is, the majority of the training, the resources, all the things that we have accessible to us are about production and customer service. I believe it's getting better, and there's been a massive gap in our industry around learning how to run your business like a business, learning what a profit and loss statement is, that it's not just a thing to file taxes, learning to operate on a budget, all of the things that lend themselves to actually having a business that actually funds a life you want to live for you and the people you care about. So that being said, you know, again, Matt kind of lived that same experience side by side with me, but sitting in the agent seat longer than the leadership seat, where I was less time agency, more time leadership. And he and I were constantly crossing paths around this topic and brainstorming and all the things. So, Matt, I'm going to let you jump in and just kind of set up your own story around this topic.
Yeah, sure. No problem. So, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me on for a third time. Appreciate
Of
it.
course.
Excited to be here. It's one of my favorite topics. I actually think I'll set it up with this. I think that in the almost 20 years that I've been in and around the real estate business, um, I, I think the key differentiator between somebody that I know as a practitioner or a tactician, or people that sort of live in the business as an influencer, um, is their command of the financials. That fundamentally you can be in this business and wear either hat. You can be a tactician practitioner, or you can be an influencer, both of which can make you a lot of top line money. But the practitioner tacticians are the ones that look at it from the business standpoint, not from the influence standpoint. They start to ask the question of like, well, does this lead to another version of a life that I want to live, which comes as a byproduct of the money that I make. And I think the reason that like the language around it not being sexy generally comes from the fact that people think of the money part as the accounting. And what you really have to do for anybody that's out there that's saying, like, shit, maybe I'm in the influencer role. Maybe I sell a lot of houses, but don't really know what happens to my money. The issue that you have isn't really that you don't value the money, because of course you do. You just don't understand what it can do for you when you get it. And so where my story starts is, as a lot of people, I got into I graduated from college. I got a W-2 job, and the W-2 job made money easier because every 2 weeks, the same amount of money showed up in my bank account, unless I was getting a bonus or a commission, in which case there was more of it, which meant I could spend more, which is how most Americans operate. So if the commission or whatever showed up, then I spent more money. But next week, in 2 weeks, I knew I would get the exact same amount deposited because it was direct deposit every 2 weeks. When I got into real estate, every check was a commission check. So every check felt like a bonus. So I treated every check the same way. And as the money came in, I would spend it first on my lifestyle, because that's generally what everybody thinks is the first thing you have to spend: your car payment, your mortgage, your health insurance, all those things. And then second, when I felt I had enough, I would invest in my business. I would say, "Oh, what can I spend money on that will get me more leads or more opportunity?" And I was really good at that. In fact, from 2006, when I got my license, to 2011, so in a matter of about 5 years, I went from being a nobody who'd never sold a house to the number one agent in our market center in 2011. Um, I was, on the ALC. I was given all the awards. I had all the plaques and the medals, and I was asked to teach all the classes about how to be a top producer. And so on the outside, looking at Matt Miale, you saw a success story. I remember in 1 month I took 13 listings, and we celebrated that in the market center like it was this big, big thing. The behind the scenes though was I was my life was not working at all. The income didn't match the output. Like, so what people saw was the highly successful, very, by the way, back then, suit and tie almost every day too, believe it or not. I had transitioned from cargo shorts and flip-flops to the suit and tie, but I was dressing the part, acting the part, showing up that way, very consistently, and getting all the accolades. But behind the scenes, there was no money. There was just no money. I couldn't quite get my head around why. It was a constant mental struggle, and fundamentally the shift for me was 2011. So it was January of 2012. I got my 1099. It was January, sometime around this year, and you're all going to be getting them. Everybody listening, you're going to get your 1099, and some of you will have the exact same experience that I had, which is I opened the mailbox, I saw it, I knew what it was because I knew that it was like, this to me was like a gift because I had had such a good year and I knew there was a lot of money. And I was trying to measure in my mind success by the top line. So I just couldn't wait to see what that 1099 said. And it said I made $360,000 ish, something like that. And I thought, in the moment, I was thrilled. Like, the emotion, which is again part of what most agents struggle with, is I was emotionally driven, not tactically driven. So I was in the world of, I made $360,000. I must be awesome. So as I opened that and saw that, I was really, really, really excited about how much money I had made. I couldn't wait to tell my wife. So I like turn around, go in the house. I'm holding the 1099 in my hand. And I'm like, "You're not gonna believe this. This is unbelievable. Look at this. Look how much money I made." Like, I was showing her, like I was showing off. And she did not react the same way that I thought she would. Like, it was I try to explain it like it wasn't that she was angry. It was like a combination of fear, disappointment, confusion, because she was a school teacher. The most money she ever made was $55,000 a year. And it was never in her eye, like $300,000 to her was the same as it was to me. That felt like winning the lottery. I'd never had any concept of that kind of money. And so when I saw it in writing, this is how much money you made, and then shared with her, I thought she'd be excited like I was, like, wow, what a stud, like I married a rich guy. And she was not. To her credit, she was like, dude, we're fucked up. Like, she was like, we have a problem. Like, where is the money? And I was like, good question. I don't know. I don't know. I really, really don't know. Now, I have to qualify this so that people don't think that I was just like a lunatic, like, taking limousines to listing appointments or something. Like, at the time, owned a bunch of rental property. And as a product of the 2008 mortgage crisis, I owned a lot of rental property that was losing money. And so my income from real estate was feeding bad assets. But because I had no idea what was happening, I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars selling real estate in order to salvage property that was, hundreds of thousands of dollars upside down. And so I was
So
like just borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, but having no idea what the good assets were, what the bad assets were. It was like it all came into one pile and it all just went out and paid whatever was on fire. And I should tell you, like everything was on fire. I was behind on mortgage payments. I definitely had, taxes that were due. It was just a giant mess. Go ahead, Matt.
yeah, I just want to pause you there to highlight and make sure we don't breeze over it. Like, so a lot of you know that I own RE Profit, the software company that automates financials for agents. One of the number one questions that I get is, "Oh, can I put my rental income in there? I flip houses, can I put that income in there?" And my answer is always yes, you can, and no, you shouldn't.
Mhm.
Right? And this is the exact reason why. What I always say to them is like, look, you need to separate things out as much as you possibly can so you can see what's winning and what's losing.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you put it all together, you can't tell. Like that's a perfect example of you go, okay, I'm not living lavishly. I'm not
Oh,
spending
and we weren't even
uncontrollably.
able to afford groceries some months, but it was because the issue wasn't that there wasn't enough income. It's that there was no strategy as far as where the money went. It just went to whatever was the hottest burning problem at the time. And, I see this with countless realtors, even people that don't own a bunch of real estate that's upside down because of a mortgage crisis. Like the money comes in and you treat the money as if the money has no prior obligation. But the thing is that as soon as you become a business owner, every dollar you make has already been committed. You've made a prior obligation until you meet some next step. Now, the thing is, this is 2012. So I'm young. I am about to have my third child. I've made a lot of money. I've got a bunch of problems. And in that moment where my wife and I were sort of upside down on it, my instinct, which is what a lot of agents go through, my instinct was just sell more. Like I'll have to sell my way out of this. But there was another part of me which said, you need to figure out what you're doing first. Like, what is actually even happening? And it's good fortune. Like everything, every challenge you have is also an opportunity. And it was very good fortune that that was such a mess. Because if I had only been a little bit of a mess, I probably never would have slowed down long enough to actually figure out what was happening. So the fact that it was so bundled up and it was like 9 properties and I had second mortgages on some and others weren't, and then there were bank loans and they were cross collateralized. And meanwhile, the only thing that I knew would create upside cash, what you can't really rent your way out of an upside down property, right? That just takes time. And so the only thing that I could really do was figure out how to continue to sell more property, but then figure out where the money should go and in what order. And so I became a student of it. So from like 2012 to 2014, it really was a 2 year process to sort of unwind what I often refer to as a bag of snakes, where everything was in one bag and I just didn't know what was going where. And oh, by the way, that meant I had to make a lot of really, really tough choices. Like, I'm not going to pay this credit card for the next 90 days. Which meant, of course, the nasty phone calls would show up and the angry collections letters and all of those things. But fundamentally, I had to decide how to get out of it. I'm very, very fortunate that I was able to put together a plan that avoided any foreclosures or bankruptcy or anything like that. But it required a very high level of attention to detail over a period of time where I just literally every dollar that came in got allocated. And it was intense. It was an intense period in my life where I just sort of mapped everything properly. Now, most people would be overwhelmed by that process, and it was the byproduct of that that made me realize if you just stay on top of this from the beginning and have clarity about where your money goes, then you avoid the problem down the line. So, the outcome today is, fast forward, it's now, 13 years later, 14 years later. I mean, I look at my financials every day, which is so bananas, but it's every single day. We look at cash flow, we look at accounts payable, we look at what we're projecting, how much we anticipate getting in. But that's because we run a business that's doing, 5 million in revenue. So now if I wasn't allocating money properly now, we'd be in real, real jeopardy, like real trouble. So the choice to me is really the most important thing is that at some point everybody who's a real estate agent has to decide whether you're in this to make money so that you can live the life that you want to live, or you're in this just to sell more homes. The outcome of just selling more homes is guaranteed you'll never make any money. You will earn revenue, but you will not create wealth. Guaranteed. I've seen it. These are the people Matt talks about. I'm in rooms with people that do it. Like I'm in rooms of top producing agents who have no money. They own a bunch of shit. They have a lot of debt, but they're still hitting the end of the year and not able to pay their taxes. And so the allocation of resources has to go to, if every dollar I make has to go to something that is viable and proven, and you can choose to do whatever you want with it, but you've got to make a decision about whether or not it's going to move your business forward or whether you're going to take it out and spend it on something. Um, I don't know, Matt. What parts of that have I left out?
Well, there's two things that I want to highlight from the story, because there's little nuggets along the way. Um, One of the things you said is my initial instinct was to sell myself out of it.
Yeah.
Like I want to dig into that a little bit because in most sales environments and or self-employed environments, that tends to be our go-to answer. Doesn't matter if I'm a realtor or if I'm a
Yep.
contractor. I'm not making money. Okay. I just need
I
to
need more
do
jobs.
more. I just need more jobs. I need to do
Yep.
more business. And the reality is, which is a sickening reality, and most people don't believe it until they've done it. When you make broken bigger, you just get bigger broken. Period.
100%.
Right.
Yes. Love that.
And and it's hard to believe because people
Yeah.
are like, no, no, no. If I'm losing money at 50 grand, I just have to make 100.
But you're
And I'm
scaling
fine.
you're scaling
There's,
the problem that you
that's
have.
it.
Yeah.
You're scaling the problem. So is there anything you want to add to that? I just wanted to.
No, I think it's really insightful. It was sort of how I wound up in so much trouble with the apartments. Was like the thing was that I had one really good apartment building that was making money. And then what I quickly said was, well, if I can do it on one, then I can do it on two, and I probably could do it on a million. So I may as well just go as fast as I can. But by the time I got to my third acquisition, I was making excuses for cash flow because it was like, well, I'll fix that. Well, I'll fix that. Well, I'll fix that. And before you knew it, I was so underwater on the monthly overhead because I was making these minor tweaks to the that I scaled the problem. I made the problem so much bigger that my net profit monthly on 48 apartments was like in it every I had to be at 100%, I don't remember exactly, but I had to be like way north of 90% occupancy for the better part of 9 months in order to make a dollar, right? Which is just, it was like unrealistic expectations that I just thought, well, I'll fix it. And the best way to do it is go buy another one because if I get another one, then
That'll
that one will help me
compensate.
get over the line, and it was actually how I wound up so upside down was I went too fast, too hard in without solving the first problem. The issue for most of us though is that we're mentally trying to get our lifestyle to catch up to what we expect. Like we all of us have a problem with lifestyle. Like at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is that we have an expectation of what our lifestyle should be. And by the way, this infects your business too. Like this isn't all about like buying Gucci bags and Lamborghinis. Like you get into a business where you're like, my business should be here, not where it is. And I want my business to be here, so I'm going to spend money to make it happen faster. But that doesn't actually work because you're not anticipating how long it will take for the thing you're spending money on to actually give you a return. Let's just take the most obvious one, which is leads. Everybody thinks that you can buy leads to get out of financial trouble. How long? First, let's just take conversions out of it. Let's say the first lead you get actually converts. You're 90 to 120 days away from a check from the best case scenario of a lead. Now, that's great in 90 to 120 days, but if you're already suffering with cash flow today, your cash flow is only going to get worse over the next 90 to 120 days. Meanwhile, you're going to spend more money on more leads in order to get out of trouble in 6 months or 9 months or a year. And you're literally going to dig a bigger hole that there is no scenario where that actually gets you out of it. By the way, it's basically crack. That's why that business model is so great for people that sell leads.
Mhm.
That's why teams can't get off of them once they're on them. They're stuck. They need the leads today to pay the bills in 90 or 120 days. They need it. They need the fix today because otherwise they'll have no money in 90 or 120 days. And the debt that they're creating today to acquire the leads is basically designed to pay off the future bills that they have in 90 or 120 days. It's brilliant, but most agents are hooked on it.
So let me ask you a couple like point blank questions.
Yeah, far away.
So, part of what you talked about is like we tend to delay solving the problem often because we want to deny the problem or solving the problem feels overwhelming.
Yeah, both
So,
of
like
them.
you mentioned, you went through a 2 year process
Yeah.
of learning and unwinding that bag of snakes, as you put it, which to a lot of people could seem overwhelming. Yet at the end of the day, your option is really, do I slow down and just lean into this? Like, right? Like, okay, so I'm going to be a little cheesy here and I'm
Yes.
going to toe the company line. You know, the reason that they use the buffalo at KW as like a metaphor, especially going through the weird markets that we've been through, is that
Yeah.
is an animal that turns and goes directly into the storm.
Correct.
It
Yeah.
actually, its instinct is if I walk into the storm, I get out of
Yeah.
the storm faster. If I
Right.
run from it, then I'm in the middle of it forever because I'm running with it. Like
Right.
that's the difference between, am I going to accept short term discomfort and short term overwhelm to lean into a process that is new to me and can be uncomfortable, or am I going to live in the storm the rest of my freaking life?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 100%. Like that's an instinct thing. And if you don't have a coach that's guiding you toward that stuff, then you need one. You will very rarely naturally figure out that instinct. Your instinct, fight or flight, is generally going to tell you to avoid it as long as you possibly can. Generally. It takes a while. I'm 50, so it's taken decades for me to like learn the habit of, ooh, I have a problem, I need to solve it. Almost to the point where I get excited because now I'm like, cool, I can solve that problem faster because I've identified it. Like now I run right at it, but that's usually not people's natural instinct. It takes getting your ass kicked a few times to realize, oh my God, I'm going to get my ass kicked either way. I may as well take the lumps now before it gets too big. So just from a habit standpoint, that will take a little while. Um, I think what I would just add, and it's a little bit shifting gears a little bit all over the place, but what I would tell somebody that's like waking up today and realizing, oh crap, I'm probably going to get a 1099 and not have the money to pay the taxes that I need to pay. Or I'm waking up today and this sounds an awful lot like me. I have made a bunch of money, but I'm not really sure where it all went. And I'm not saving any, and I'm feeling a little uncomfortable around my finances. So you could be a little uncomfortable. You don't have to be in a giant mess like I was. My first advice is this is just get get super clear on your lifestyle expense. That to me is like where I see a lot of agents really miss the boat is they try to jump over whatever it is that's happening in their lifestyle to solve it on the business side and figure that if they could just figure out the business side, then the lifestyle will take care of itself. In real estate, it really goes the other way. Your household is an expense to your business. Whatever your lifestyle is an expense to your business, and it will always be an expense to your business. Meaning you're less likely to make especially if you're married or have kids, or you're very unlikely to make difficult choices in the household front, whereas you think you can make all the tough choices on the business side and solve that. You're going to have a harder time fixing your household than you will fixing your business. So start there. What does it actually cost me to just pay my bills on time every 30 days? What's that number? That's your very first step. Like my mortgage, my car payments, if I have credit cards, what are those payments? My electric bills, what does it cost to just live? And if you can get your head around that number, then you can just quickly reverse engineer. Well, that means I have to sell X number of homes every month, and I've got to slide 25 to 30% of whatever that top line revenue out for taxes. And then I've got to figure out how much will it cost me to be in business. Now, the good news for most real estate agents is it doesn't cost a lot of money to run a good, healthy real estate business. It really doesn't. I mean, even the 40-40-30 model is not accurate for a solo agent. If you're selling 20 to 40 homes, you can do that on very little expense. Very, very little. Your profit should be well above 50 to 50%. So if you know that you can sell, if you can generate 300,000 in GCI, you ought to be able to anticipate putting 150 to 175,000 in your personal bank account after your taxes are set aside. You can make a lot of money just by doing things the basic way, networking properly. You don't have to spend a lot of money in this business. So, my advice to people is start with your household, get clear what that is, and then reverse engineer how much revenue you need in order to support your household expenses, and keep it as lean as you possibly can on the business side until you've covered your household expenses. Once you've done that, then you actually have afforded yourself the opportunity to spend a little bit of money in your business. What I think, and this is another one of those things that I see when I'm coaching agents, is a lot of times the decision between do I want to invest in my business or do I want to invest in my lifestyle is a lot harder than they think it's going to be. Like there's people that say like, "Oh, well, I did want to do that new addition or a new kitchen in my house, but I also think that if I invest in my business, I could grow." You've got to make a decision which one is more important to you. By the way, there's no right choice. At the end of the day, it's your life. You can put your money where you want.
Yeah. There's something that showed up in both sides of that conversation, personal and business. Like when you're going through that thought process that Matt's talking about right now, and you're looking at your expenses, and be really aware of whether or not you are having an emotional conversation with yourself or a tactical conversation, because that's the real challenge. The real challenge, because all this is simple as long as we're detached from it.
Yeah.
Meaning, if I give you my household expenses and my P&L, I would bet almost anyone on this call, if it's jacked up, could find what's jacked up and tell me exactly what to do to fix it, because you have no emotions tied to it.
Right.
Right? You're coming at it with nothing but zeros, decimals, and logic.
Right.
But the minute you own it, you suddenly have a lot of emotions around it. You have ego, you have all the things.
Really smart.
It makes life far more complicated than it is, right? Bottom line. So be very aware when you're going through that process, when you're thinking through these things. Are you using a logical brain or an emotional brain right now? Right? We talked about adjusting our personal expenses on the business side. Sometimes maybe, we've made investments into our business that can be seen publicly. And then the market shifts and restricts, and then suddenly maybe we can't afford to make those investments, but we don't want to let them go because we feel like it creates a public perception of me moving backwards instead of forwards. That's an emotional conversation.
Yeah.
Like you're not having a tactical business conversation. You're getting emotion and ego in it. And I think
there's a good filter to add to this, Matt, which is that if you want to put your business builder hat on, the question you need to be asking is, will how will this make me money? That's the way business people think. So here's what I often encounter. Let's just use one that's probably widely adopted. I'll encounter somebody that will say, I need to do better with social media. And I go, okay, what does that mean to you? Well, I need better reels and I need better content and I need to be more public and there's not enough social media around my business. I need to shoot better videos. And they've got a host of things that they need to do. And I will always ask the question, cool, how will that make you money? If you can't draw a line between what you think you need to spend money on and how you will make money, you haven't done the work yet. Like people will then often drift into, and I'm using this one as an example, not to pick on social media because I do a lot, but I have a plan as to how it will make me money. But people will often drift into, well, more people will see me. And then if they see me, that will create buzz or that'll create inbound inquiry. And it's like too airy fairy to spend money on. Like, I don't think that's a spend money problem. That's a thing you can solve without spending money. So often, if you can't, this is the filter is that if you ask yourself, how will this help me make money? It starts putting a roadblock in front of those instinct emotional decisions. And I catch myself in it all the time. But again, I am left to my own devices. I'm going to buy everything. I want to throw money at every problem because that's way easier. So I'm by far not like I am a learned tactician, but I am by design, that's not who I am. By design, I'm way more of the people, emotion, right? So, but I asked the question, how will this help me make money? Because what I've recognized is that my life is so much better. The life I actually live, by the way, not the real estate life, because who care? No one cares about any of that. Like we design, like that's just what you do. That's your job. Like that's just your job. But the life I really get to live, paying for my kids to go to college, meeting the personal financial objectives that I set for myself, being able to have, a ski house and buy season passes for my kids, like those are the things that matter to me, like the real me, not the realtor me. And so every time I spend money, I ask, how will this help me make money? Because what really matters is it's not the dollars, it's what that does for the life, for the part of my life that I really care about. And so put the filter in front of everything you spend. How will this help me make money? And the other question that I'll ask is, does this help me sell one more house? Like, and you have to be able to draw a clear line. If it gets ambiguous, you're not ready yet. Like you got to do more work, figure it out more, test more stuff, which is another point that I want to go back to. If you are, again, one of those people waking up today and in this process of saying, shit, I don't have the clear financial outcome that I'd like. I don't have as much clarity as I should. I need to dive into this. Here's a little like cheat sheet of what's going to happen. You're going to go to what you think are probably like the short term answers, like an accountant, a CPA, or a bookkeeper, and they are going to give you their version of what they think you should do. It is usually not the full story. You get their version of it. Your personal challenge is that you're in an industry that looks like no other industry on the planet. And so, whatever bookkeeper you work with or accountant you work with, they don't really understand how you do what you do or how your money works. There's a lot of gaps between how a real estate agent income and business works and the rest of the world. And so, your first step is go get information from people who've done it before you, like myself or like Matt. Find people that are inside the industry that have solved it and swallow the humility, get over your ego and let them help you. Because that's the other thing is often I get agents coming to me and saying, I have a problem. And I go, I'm going to need this information. And I get 25 or 30% of it. And they don't give me all of it because they're embarrassed. They're embarrassed about how much they owe on the credit card. They're embarrassed about some of the choices they've made. None of that matters to me at all. I just know I can't help them unless I have the whole picture. So if I don't understand what your household expenses are and what your business commitments are, there's no way I can fix the problem and reverse engineer a business plan that's going to help you get out of it because I don't know what I'm actually dealing with. I don't have the fact pattern. So be cautious about who you go to for advice. That's my piece of advice. The reason
I
it's
just want to tag on to that too with the emotions around that, the embarrassment.
yeah,
You will not find a human who is qualified to help you solve that problem who will also bring judgment to the table. That
that's
person doesn't exist. They
totally
don't. The person who knows how to help you solve that problem will not bring judgment to the table
that's right.
because they have enough business experience
Yeah.
to know and understand this isn't a judgy situation. Business is complicated, difficult,
Yep.
and we all bump our head and learn lessons. So
And
just
that
know
person
that.
has been there.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
been there.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
been
And,
there.
and by the way, be cautious about going to your parents because they can't possibly not have emotion and judgment. They're not they're not qualified. It takes somebody who like has a view of it that is not invested. By the way, your spouse is probably not the solution either. So, like, again, now hopefully you've got clarity with your spouse about how your money works. But like, a lot of people get into really uncomfortable dialogues around this stuff because they're going to the people that they feel should be their trusted allies, and they should be. But because, to Matt's point, they're emotionally invested, it's really hard for them to not have feelings around it. So you just have to go to a tactician who's just going to diagnose it and prescribe. Look, this is what you got to do. This is how you're going to do it. And I got it took me a few of those meetings back to this 2012 story. It took me a while before I found those people. And because I was young and also full of shame and embarrassment, I was very embarrassed about the situation I was in. I didn't go to the people that I should have gone to first. I tried to solve it myself by hiring more expensive accounting firms and more expensive bookkeepers, and they'll know, they're the smartest there is, and they did not know. They had no solution other than they all the world is full of people that will separate you from your money to solve a problem. When you show someone that you have a problem, they will very quickly say, I can solve your problem for this much money. So you have to be, especially around this, you have to be really careful because lots of people will charge you to solve this problem. And this is a very emotionally charged, obvious problem. And so when you're in that situation, be really careful who you go to. Again, my advice is go to somebody inside the business in the industry that you can trust that will and again, I'll put my name out there. You can text me, call me anytime. I will do a P&L review with anybody, and it will not be at no charge, just happy to help because I found people that were willing to help me. So always willing to do that.
Awesome. Love that. There was a nugget that you dropped that I wanted to rewind on, but I've lost track of it. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Two things. One, we have a question in the chat, which is I'm going to give you the question, but you are also starting to go down the road of sort of creating a list. Like step one, I would do this.
Yeah.
If there's steps to that, I don't want to interrupt and not get to those. So I'm going to give you the question, and then you either complete that list or go to this question if it fits in. Can you talk about identifying where and how leads come to me? In other words, how do I track that? I believe is the question.
Like, how are you tracking your ROI on inbound opportunities?
Oh, yes, that is the question. And the thing that I did want to say that does tie back to the leads is talking about how do I generate the business. It's not only the cost, it's not only looking at it and saying, is this actually going to make me more money? But you also need to know how long it's going to take more
Yes.
money, right? So there's a book called The Dip. Everything we do in life has a dip. That is the period of time where it's all input and we're not necessarily getting output yet, right? Easy example is to talk about working out, right? Like if you want to build a six pack, you got to put in a whole lot of effort before you get any glimpse of progress back, right?
Yes.
It's a heavy time. So the dip there is really, really big. It's the same with lead generation strategies. Everything has a dip, which is the amount of time it's typically going to be input before you're getting an output. And if you don't understand the strategy you're going into and what the dip is, there's a high likelihood you're going to burn energy and time with no outcome because you didn't give it the runway. You didn't
Right.
know the runway, therefore you didn't give it enough runway. So you either put money in and burned it because
Totally.
you didn't run the play long enough, or you burned your time for the same reason. I went in, but I didn't stay in the game long enough to actually get the result.
Yep.
So you got to know directly, how does it make money? What's the dip? By the way, everything has a dip, so don't go looking for instant gratification. Instant gratification is almost always the beginning of a problem,
Hmm.
right? And don't look for too many, right? The metaphor I always use is your business is like a stool, right? All you need to be stable is three legs. So that's three lead funnels, three lead sources, right? And when I say lead, I don't mean buying, I mean opportunities to connect with human beings, right? You can have a fourth and it's a little more stable, but if you go to five, it's just weird, right? No value. You just got a weird stool and a weird business. Like it's
Yeah.
three to four. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. You create
Um,
redundancy.
I'll
Yeah.
let you grab. How do you track your lead sources?
Well, the I think one of the best things that people can take away from this is understand that you don't need any. You don't need to spend money on any. I mean, we will typically do 500 to 600 transactions, and 85% of that business is from Sphere repeat and referral business. And so,
And that's what we find as well.
yep, it's your highest ROI financial and time investment activity, meaning go talk to people you know or go meet new people. And in the business of real estate, which is a relationship driven business, that is always the best resource. So how do we track it? We just act. I mean, I have the dumbest answer, the dumbest simplest answer, which is we don't spend money on any leads. So I don't. It's not that
Right.
complicated. It's like whatever shows up is either somebody we knew, or somebody that was referred to us by someone we knew, or someone that we met somewhere. And that's like there for sure. We because we have market share, we get some value from inbound sign calls or somebody finding us somewhere, but those things are an ancillary part of what the business is built on. I don't build the engine of the business around that. The engine of the business is based on the things that we control, which are the highest ROI and highest ROI return based on what you can spend your time on and what you can spend your money on. If everybody on this call went out and just met 10 people today and had a reasonable dialogue with 10 people, you have a pretty good shot that one of them either has a real estate need or knows someone who does. If you just talk to 10 people in a meaningful way, if you just get on the phone and start calling people out of the yellow pages, your conversion rates are going to be atrocious, which is basically, I've made the argument, and no one has yet to prove it to me, that pay-per-click ads are the equivalent of the phone book. That like any of that stuff is just separating you from your money to get random names in a list. That doesn't actually create any value. It just gives you a name. It just gives you a list of names to call. So, is that a fair answer, Michael?
I think so. Again, I've been doing this a long time and I've always struggled with quantifying what works, what doesn't.
It's a great question. So, let me give you an example of one that makes everybody scratch their head. A, a huge amount of our marketing budget is spent on events, on
Hmm.
on client events. And I teach a class on events. I've done seminars about it. We offer event management for third party real estate teams around the country. Like I'm a massive believer in events. You can look. There's a foam finger from
And
one of
I've
our
done
events.
many myself.
Yeah, we love doing events, and people always ask me, how do you figure out what your ROI is on the events?
Hmm.
And it's like you don't. You
Right.
actually
Exactly.
can't. Like
Okay.
it's
Thank
like a
you.
stupid exercise. Like the idea that I'm gonna invite 5,000 people to an event, 1,200 of them are gonna show up, but then a certain number of the people that got invited but didn't show up are gonna remember me and call me because they want to list or buy or sell, or they're gonna refer somebody to me. How do I know what the impact of the event is? I really can't. So
Right.
there's this old mechanism, and I always forget the term, but it's a cool story. Back in World War II, early in World War II, before the invasion of Normandy, the United States would send these bombing missions over to Europe. And they were sending you've seen Memphis Belle, or maybe you guys have heard some of these stories, right? There was recently a uh, what was it called? Masters of Air, I think. There was an HBO miniseries about it. And the U.S. was taking just outrageous losses. I mean, it was like 40% of the planes that went over didn't come back. And so these were like suicide bombing runs, right? They were rough. And so they were deploying all their smartest mathematicians and analysts to figure out, how do we get more of our planes back? And so the initial thing was, well, the planes that come back have bullet holes all over. What we need to do is reinforce the planes wherever the bullet holes are, because that's obviously where they're getting shot. But this one brilliant ironically, German mathematician said, you've got it all wrong. You actually need to reinforce the parts on the planes that don't have the bullet, where the bullet holes aren't showing up, because that's where they're getting shot and crashing. So they had these charts of all the planes, and they were charting all where the bullet holes were, and they clustered like anything. All the bullet holes on the planes coming back were all in the same place, and there were these spots where there were no bullet holes, and they were, naturally they said, well, we just need to defend where the bullet holes are. And this one guy was like, no, dingbat, you got to defend where the bullet holes aren't, because those are the planes that are crashing. The ones that are getting
Exactly.
shot in those spots are the ones that aren't coming back.
Right.
We have a tendency in business, and this is not real estate. We have a tendency to track everything that we can and then give meaning to it because it must mean something. And the reality is that some things don't mean anything. Some things you do want to understand it, but some things don't tell the story that you think they're telling. So I use that a lot, because data for the sake of data can actually be misleading. So let's say, for instance, you were going to be doing a business based on events and giveaways, and you start tracking it and say, well, that doesn't work. We get no return. I'm not going to do any events. You'd be missing a huge opportunity, because the fact is, it's just kind of an untrackable statistic. So you don't know how many people called
Right.
as a result of it.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say, and Matt, feel free to disagree if you do, that's a really good example of something where the ROI is abstract. It's
Yeah,
much harder to pin down. Now, if you go back to his example of internet leads, that is very trackable.
very
And the
trackable.
story is the story,
That's right.
right? If you have a farm area, right, not quite as cut and dry as an internet lead funnel,
Yep.
but way more cut and dry and way more tangible than an events approach.
And
So, like,
your best example too, Matt, that the farm area simply requires a longer term,
100%.
meaning that if you send one mailer, you will get no return. And then you could easily say, well, that doesn't work. But if you did it for 18 months in a row, you would start seeing an exponential return. And most people don't understand how to invest in a farm. And so they abandon ship too quickly in order to get the return, because they didn't plan on it. So, there's again, maybe the dumb, simple answer is, I just focus on what I know works at a really high level, which is know more people and talk to them a lot. And that has proven over decades in the business to be the highest ROI outcome. Are there other, versions? For sure. We know lots of people that have built YouTube channels and created massive amount of inbound opportunity. And all of those things are valuable, but that's a 6-year runway, not a 2-year runway, and not long enough for me. It's also not something I'm actually that interested in, so I don't want to do it. So like, that's another filter, is don't do something you don't want to stick with, because that's not going to pay you back either. You're not going to have the bandwidth emotionally to stick with it.
Yeah. I think that last part is huge. The reality is, you look across the industry, there's so many people that are just successful at such high levels, and they all do it completely different. But
Totally.
the guy or gal who does it on YouTube, there's a good chance that's kind of their thing.
They
Like, they
like it.
actually like being in front of a camera. They like editing. They
They
like
would have been
seeing.
they would have been a newscaster in another life.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Like, that's actually the thing they like doing. Like, I can speak for Matt because I've known Matt for a long time. One of the first events he did was bourbon tasting. He
Yeah.
did it at an Irish pub, and there was music, and like sports on the TVs and the bar, and it was a very casual, but it was a very Matt Miale event. Like
Yeah,
it
totally.
felt like Matt and the people that were there were people who connect with Matt not just professionally but personally. And as I've watched him roll out new events, at this point I've seen him do a ton of different events, but they all are authentic
Right.
to who Matt is, which
Right.
makes it easier for Matt to do. It's more fun for Matt to do, right? The people he attracts into his team tend to be people who see value in those same things or enjoy those same things, which creates more synergy. Like, so just remember there's a million ways to do it, right?
Million ways.
I
Yeah.
remember you talking to an agent who like came to you about a magazine and was like, "Hey, I can invest X amount of money into this magazine," and you were like, "Yeah, how much is it?" And they were like, $500 a month. You're like, "Take that $500 a month and go take some people out to dinner."
Yes,
And
totally.
I remember them coming to me and telling me that he had that conversation with you. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's solid advice. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Again, look, to me, it's this question of like, well, how do you make money from the magazine? Like, ask the how do you make money from that? And the answer was too ambiguous. And it was like, okay, you don't know yet. What's your call to action going to be? How is the magazine going to create an inbound inquiry that's going to ultimately lead to like, then don't do it. Don't do it if you can't answer the question, how do you make money from it? Like, it's got to somehow be able to answer that question.
amen. I'm going to pause here. We got 6 minutes left. Does anybody have any specific questions for Matt around anything that we talked about today or a curveball?
Curveball. I like a curveball.
Michael, I think you're talking, but you are muted.
Talk about where you see residential investment property going in the next year.
It's a good question. Do you mean as an owner or from a real estate agent standpoint?
Investor opportunities.
Um, I don't particularly. What market are you in, Michael?
Boston,
You're in Boston. I
Metro West.
I don't think we're in for any catastrophic real estate shift in the next 12 to 18 months. Meaning, I we're starting to see, some of the slowdown. We're starting to see things take a little longer on the market. That said, I would anticipate that your rate of return and on annualized appreciation will probably start to slow a little bit from an investor standpoint. But if you're saying like, is now a time to, start hoarding cash and get ready for the crash, there's like no evidence at all that that's coming. Um,
Well, and even in '08, our market bounced back within 2 years.
I've always said that the perspective. I just literally had this conversation this weekend with a bunch of friends where they were saying, can it keep going? Can it keep going? And I said, having lived through the market correction of 2008, here's what I could tell you is that prices dropped in 2000 from 2008 to 2010,
Hmm.
prices dropped to the same value that they were in 2005,
Right.
not to the value that they were in 2000. They dropped from 2008 through 2010 down to about where they were in 2005,
In
which
the
means
Northeast.
in the Northeast, yes, correct. Which means that which is again, all it's relevant to me. It's where I sell, right? But which
Right.
means that if you had bought a house in 2004 or 2003, you were still winning even during the correction. It
Yeah,
was only
of
if you
course.
bought from 2005 to 2008 that you lost some value, and it started to recover in 2011. And
Right.
so your turn time was really like a 6 year, like 6 years, which by the way is still under the average amount of time that a person spends in a home, which is 7. So like I look at in real estate investing like this: whatever your plan is, stick to your plan. If you're a flipper, you should be more cautious, I think, because a lot of people that flip properties make money on market appreciation. But if you're like a guy who's saying, "Hey, I'm building a portfolio of rental property," even if we flatten out this year and lose value over the next two, you're not going to go back to 2019 prices. Like we won't
Right.
lose that much, right? So you'll lose some, which means maybe you go back to 2023 value. and then you'll regain it and we'll turn back around. So my guidance to people is always like, what is it that you're trying to get? If you're a flipper,
Hmm.
I would be cautious as a flipper right now. Like
Yep.
I would be cautious about that. I think I would be cautious in development right now. Unless you're doing long-term multifamily development, I'd be cautious in single family development.
Yeah, I've just got a client that owns property in Mass, Texas, Florida, and wants to dip their toes into flipping small singles.
hmm.
And that's a good warning that I will certainly
Look,
pass on.
if you can steal the property, sure. I mean,
No, no, no.
yeah,
Anything's for sale at the right price.
yes,
But I think
exactly.
they're also they're very good clients and very like, okay, the first one we do, we just don't want to lose any money. So is it worth using the
I have a
time
different strategy to not lose any money.
Yeah.
Just
again?
keep, just, I have a different strategy to not lose
No,
any
no, no,
money.
no. Of course
Just
you
keep
do.
your money like this,
Well,
like,
and I'm going to use that.
yeah.
Um, However, the lessons learned from that maybe have value for the next one.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
gonna
don't,
jump in and provide some feedback on that one too. So we're gonna tag team this.
Please, Max, I know you have a lot of experience there.
A lot of experience in the flip. So number one, it's always a good time to do good deals, and it's never a good time to do bad deals. Period. So when it comes to flipping, to the point that Matt was making, flipping is a pretty quick in and out
Yep.
transaction, assuming you're doing it correctly. So that risk of the shifting market is less. However, there's a lot of people in a market like we've been in whose mistakes get covered up by the fact that the market is appreciating and it
Correct.
backfills all their mistakes. So I often give the advice to people when they talk about going and buying a $15,000, $20,000 course. I'll be like, no, take that money and buy a flip with it. And you'll learn more than you will from the course.
Right.
However, part of that learning process is getting into a deal that makes money. Because if you get into a deal that looks like it's a break even deal for the education, you will end up losing money.
yeah.
Okay.
Right. So
Mhm.
good deals always matter. You can't lose money you don't invest. Right. That was one of the things I always used to say when I was flipping. If I had a
Yep.
deal that I wanted to push, like I got emotional about it, I was like, I really want this one. I would say it over and over in my head. You can't lose money you never invested. So if it was putting me outside of what my guardrails were, the answer was
Yep.
no. And I just had to remind myself. So that would be my advice. Always a good time to do good deals, never a good time to do bad deals.
Yep.
Um, and if you're doing it for the learning process, part of the learning process is knowing what a deal looks like to make money. And
Hmm.
so you got to go in with the margin. And that learning process could eat up the margin. And then I would say if you break even because you made a bunch of mistakes, you invested in your education. You get into the deal that looks like a break even, you'll lose money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The price of
Great advice. Thank
tuition.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a price of tuition. I think that's a fair point, Matt. Yeah.
And
I'm in
I'm reading
generally,
this.
yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
book. It's a great book.
I always remind myself it's Warren Buffett, right? The number one rule,
Yep.
don't lose money. The
Don't lose
number
the money.
two rule,
Don't
don't
lose the
forget
money.
rule number one, don't lose money,
Yeah.
right? So number one and number two are don't lose money,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
one of the most successful investors in the world, right? He prioritizes not losing money, right?
Yeah, because the losing requires you to go back. It's a backward step. Like there, you have to go back and earn it again, and
Yeah.
you have to earn it
And
at an exponential higher rate of return in order to get back to even because you're respending your time on something that you
yep.
already did. You're redoing it. It's a
Yep.
waste.
So we are at 12:02. One, I just want to say thank you to Matt. Two, I would ask that each of you, have an honest conversation with yourself after this call about where you are, right? If there is holes in your boat, as far as your processes, systems, your financials, your tracking, your reality of income and expenses at home or at work, in the business, like have an honest conversation with yourself. And if there are issues, now is the time to solve it, right? Number one, they always say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Next best is today. That's a true statement, right? Second, right? It's the beginning of the year. Now is a good time to be able to start clean right? I'm not a fan of New Year's resolutions. I think that's everybody's excuse to throw 11 months of the year in the trash. However, certain things operate on that cycle, like our taxes, right? So January is a really good time to step back, take a look at everything, and say, okay, what am I doing that is not serving me, and what are the steps I need to take to solve for that? So do that for yourself. If you're resonating with this conversation, take a beat and figure out what is the thing I have to do. Right. And if you don't know the answer, like Matt said, reach out to Matt, reach out to me, reach out to leadership in your office, reach out to whoever has the experience to be able to have that conversation. Matt, any last minute
No,
nuggets of
I mean,
wisdom?
I'm super passionate about the topic. It's been a thing that I like to talk about. I did throw my Instagram handle up in the on my name there. If you're interested in more content like this, check me out on Instagram. Find me on Facebook. We post regular content and clips from our morning calls from classes that I teach. Tomorrow, for any of you that are in Massachusetts, I am going to be teaching all day a course that I run called the Production Playbook, which is 12 principles to run a highly profitable real estate business. It's about a 4.5 hour class, 4 to 5 hour class. I'm going to be teaching that in Braintree at Eric Kipnis's Market Center. So, reach out to me if you're interested in attending. And I'm sure that I could find a seat for you in the room. So,
Yeah, and I'll put a little plug in for Matt on that content. Being at the regional level, I get all the feedback about all the training. Um, Matt has been to multiple market centers where my phone blew up at the end of the day from the OP, the team leader, the agents in the room. So that class, that content that he delivers resonates at such a high level. So if you can find the time to be there, I guarantee you it'll be a good use of your time because everybody he has presented that class and that content to, top
When is this
producing
again?
agents, leadership, everybody has been mind blown.
that's tomorrow, Michael, in Braintree. And
Oh,
so that's a Market Center sponsored course, so they're bringing me in to teach.
yep.
I am going to we are going to have a bit more of a calendar. Like I said, the best thing to do is just follow me on Instagram and you'll see all the stuff that we're going to be doing because I am going to be out delivering a lot of that content over the course of the next couple of months. So
Awesome.
awesome.
Last thing, Matt, is there anything that I or this group can do for you?
No, that's it. Just plug into what we're doing. We're pretty excited about, expanding our footprint and, we're right now operating in 4 states, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. If you know agents or are, people who can benefit from working with us, don't hesitate to have them reach out anytime.
Awesome. And you, I believe, put your phone number in the chat.
I did not put my phone number, but I
Oh, you
can.
put your socials.
Yeah, I just put my Instagram handle there, which is the best place to send me a message.
Awesome. All right, brother. As always, I
Thank you,
appreciate the
Matt.
time and the wisdom.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Oh, reminder to everybody else, we are off next week. I will be traveling, so we'll be back on regular schedule, same bat channel the following week. All right. See you, everybody.